বৰঠাকুৰ IAS একাডেমি প্ৰস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা।
Hello everyone, this is Funny. Welcome to Borthakur IAS Academy. This is our daily Hindu analysis class. Without any further delay, let us begin with the first article today. UNSC resolution addresses key concerns on Afghanistan, India. So whether it was a stroke of luck or it was just happenstance, we don't know. For whatever reason, India happened to be in the role of president of UNSC at a point of time when Afghanistan was going through a critical crisis that would set the tone for the future in terms of regional geopolitics and world geopolitics. Now, India, it has to be said at this point of time that India has utilized its tenure of UNSC with a great deal of what do you call it? It was fruitful, right? It was simply fruitful. We used that platform in an effective and a simple manner. We showed our our abilities to handle international situations. We were able to maintain a very respectable posture. So, yesterday, India-led UNSC, that is India-led United Nations Security Council, passed on a resolution called Resolution 2593. It is important, this resolution is important because this resolution will play or is the foundation for India's relation with an Taliban-led Afghanistan, because this resolution outlines certain points that will set the tone for India's engagement with an Taliban-led Afghanistan. So as we discussed in multiple articles in the past, Taliban is the new reality in Afghanistan. Whether the government Taliban is going to form is an inclusive one or an entirely Taliban dominated one, that we have to wait and see. That is in the future, that is not in the cards right now. Or at least from our perspective, we need to engage with Taliban in an open way, and there have been instances where in the past particularly where we have been having negotiations with them behind closed doors. In the next article, we'll learn how India had made it an official thing by openly announcing that we had engaged, or we have engaged with the political leadership of Taliban in Doha. So coming back to the UNSC resolution, as I said, it happened. Was it a stroke of luck? Was it something else? We don't know, but we happen to be in UNSC at this point of time, and we happen to have the presidency to us during this crisis. If this wasn't the case, I don't know what different situation it would have been, but for whatever reason, we were lucky to have, or if you believe in luck, something like that, we were in a good position at right point of time, at right place. Now this resolution, which was passed by the United Nations Security Council, 2593, the number is significant, please try to remember. Now what is this resolution calls for? This resolution calls for, right, it demands that Afghan territory should not be used to threaten or attack any country, nor it should be used to shelter or train terrorists where terrorists will find a place to stay. Not only that, Afghan territory should not be used to finance terror attacks, right? It mentions individuals designated by resolution 1267. Now the resolution 1267 is significant because India was able to successfully able to add the names of Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed into that resolution. These are designated terror groups. Now, according to resolution 2593, which was recently passed and adopted by UNSC, Afghan territory should not be used for any of these activities. So the only outline of it is out of the permanent 5 countries, both China and Russia abstained from voting. So if they didn't abstain, they would have used veto. So for whatever reason, they chose to abstain from it rather than use their veto power to sink this resolution. Now, in terms of success, India being able to get this resolution passed is a huge win for us, because as I said, this resolution will act as foundation for India's relation with a Taliban-led Afghan government or Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. Now let us come back to the fact as to why Russia and China abstained from voting. So as we wanted, we got the names of terrorist organizations such as JEM, Lashkar-e-Taiba into the resolution. Likewise, China and Russia also wanted to add their own designated terror organizations that they identify as terrorist organizations. One was the Islamic State, and the second one, which concerns the Chinese the most, is the Uyghur East Turkestan Islamic Movement. This movement is very active in Xinjiang province of China, where China is carrying out untold atrocities on Uyghur Muslims of that region. Now, this movement or this Islamic movement, the Uyghur East Turkestan Islamic Movement, was born out of the atrocities that the Chinese state is carrying out on the Uyghur population of Xinjiang. Now, China is actually very worried about this, because the worry is simply that Taliban is going to use this organization, this Uyghur East Turkmenistan Islamic Movement, to or as a leverage against China in the future. So even if you have been following how China has been engaging with the Taliban, their concerns seems to be in addressing or removing or preventing support from Taliban to this organization. So they couldn't include those names in the resolution, right? They couldn't name these organizations specifically in the document. And not only that, they also listed a number of other objections while this resolution was being drafted. So again, that was the reason. They simply said that this entire resolution is being rammed through by America and Britain and France, and you are designating, you are dividing terrorist organizations into your organization, your terrorists and our terrorists. You haven't given proper time for this resolution to be discussed. This was railroaded into passing, and this is not right, so we are abstaining. That was the reason that these two countries kind of gave for not participating in the voting. But nonetheless, as I said, this resolution is a win for us, in the sense that we were able to set the tone for our future engagement with Taliban. This resolution is significant when you add it to another area where India is expected to lead from. Right, India is expected to chair the 1988 Sanctions Committee, which is entrusted with the job of looking over or either adding or improving or removing sanctions on Taliban. Right? This body, which is the 1988 Sanctions Committee, is the sole authority from the UN side of things, which is actually entrusted with the job of either imposing or lifting sanctions on Taliban. Now that is to take place next. The UN assistance mission in Afghanistan is also the mandate. The mandate of the same committee will look into whether extending the UN assistance mission in Afghanistan or not. For all intents and purposes, if Taliban wants the legitimacy that it wants, the recognition that it wants, it has to adhere to all the principles that UNSC and this committee lays out for them. What we are asking for an inclusive government formation. The second thing, the primary thing that we are asking for them is you are not supposed to allow your territory to be used to attack other countries, all while not allowing any third country to use your territory to attack their enemies. That has been our focal point. because the moment Taliban won, meaning Taliban took over Afghanistan in a way by taking over Kabul, what were the organizations that celebrated first? Forget about Pakistan. Pakistan has always been celebrating advancements of Taliban, but the terror organizations, officially designated terror organizations, were the JEM, Islamic State, TTP from Pakistan, JEM, LEM. That was the worry. That was the first and the foremost worry that most of the countries in the region had. That terrorist organizations are going to use this Afghan territory as a potential training and breeding ground for future terrorists. Now, to conclude, in a sense, the adoption of this resolution is a strong signal from Security Council and international community as to what they are expecting from Taliban in Afghanistan. As I said, UNSC, though we are not a permanent member, we were able to get this done. So that is a win for us. That sets the tone for future engagement with Taliban, not only from Indian side, but also if any other country wants to engage, they have to use this resolution as their foundation. Because UNSC, if UNSC says and they do not go by that resolution, it means that they are no longer adhering to UN agendas. So they are in fact going rogue. So no country wants to go rogue. Because remember, when we were discussing about how UNSC is going to play an important role in the future of Afghanistan, what we are trying to say is America is not going to let loose anything in regards to Afghanistan. Pretty much America is going to control the narrative, the agenda, and the resolutions particularly related to Afghanistan. They are not going to let third countries use this forum to kind of ridicule what America wasn't able to achieve in Afghanistan. So it is a win for us, and again this sets the tone for our engagement with Taliban. So that is UN Resolution 2593, and that is the 1988 committee that India is going to head in the future, that decides the future of sanctions on Taliban. Now moving on to the next article. Today's majority of the paper, for whatever reason, is dominated by international relations. So we'll try to cover this. There is one economic topic that I would like to discuss, but we'll do it tomorrow. This is regarding GDP and GVA. There is a little bit of confusion in that. I would like to clarify it in tomorrow's class if possible. Now moving on to the next article. India envoy in Doha meets Taliban leader. Now the government of India has kind of softened its stance because we don't have any other option. That's the reality that we discussed earlier also. Now the Ministry of External Affairs has announced that our ambassador in Qatar met with the head of Taliban's political office, Sher Mohammad Abbas Stenkazai. So the pronunciation is Stenkazai. Again, please forgive me for the pronunciation if it is wrong. But again, that is Sheru. He was the Indian. He was trained in Indian Military Academy in Dehradun. So he is the political head of Taliban in Qatar. Our ambassador named Deepak Mittal, not relevant, but met with the head of Taliban's political office, that is Sher Mohammad Abbas Stenkazai. As his nickname is Sheru, but again that is not relevant to our exam. But nonetheless, we had an official and an open meeting with the Taliban's political leadership in Qatar, that is in Doha. Now this is the first time. This is different, right? We have been having negotiations or talks, not the diplomatic side of it, security side of it. Our security officials along with certain diplomatic elements were having closed door talks with Taliban, where we were making it clear what our fears from Afghanistan or what our concerns are to Taliban. That was never agreed. That was never it was never acknowledged that we ever had talks with Taliban till this point of time. So this is the first time that the government has publicly acknowledged that such meeting took place, and this time it is different because they are saying that, or at least the Ministry of External Affairs is saying that This meeting took place because the Taliban had requested for it. We didn't ask for it. The Taliban themselves have asked for us for a meet, so we obliged. So, what was the discussion, or what was the focus of the discussion? It primarily was centering around safety, security, and early return of Indian nationals who were stranded in Afghanistan. Right? Now, that was the first focal point. First, let us allow us to get back our people. Remember, when our diplomatic mission was supposed to evacuate, we heard reports that the people who were controlling Kabul at that point of time did not allow our diplomatic staff to move out of embassy. So later on, our government had to engage with other governments, and later on, those governments put some pressure on Taliban leadership. Then it was again after that, our people were allowed to travel from Indian embassy in Kabul to Hamid Karzai International Airport in outskirts of Kabul. Now that was the scenario. So that happened. So the focus of this meet was again to reiterate the fact that you should focus on providing security and safety, and also facilitate early return of any Indian national who is stranded in Afghanistan currently. Right? The second point we asked, and the most important point that for us, is Afghanistan's soil should not be used for anti-India activities and terrorism in any manner. So mind you, we are going to drive that point into their heads. That is our focus, and that is where we have the most concerns from. Right? As I said, the moment Taliban won, terrorist organizations started celebrating, particularly organizations that are actually carrying out operations in our territory, in Jammu and Kashmir, in other parts of India. So we don't want Taliban to nurture these terror organizations. Right? The third thing that we focused on was, if any Afghan national, especially religious minorities in Afghanistan who are facing prosecution, if they wish to visit India, you shouldn't prevent them. Again, why we are asking this? Recently there was a group of 140 minorities, religious minorities, who wished to travel from Afghanistan to India. India sent a plane. They were supposed to enter Kabul airport, but for whatever reason, Taliban prevented them from entering the airport premises. As a result of it, the flight had to come back empty. Mind you, this was at a time when the Kabul situation was so fluid that nobody was sure who was controlling what. So it was very important at that point of time that they made into the flight. Otherwise, again, the flight couldn't just stay there because of the limited there were multiple other logistic reasons. Because of that, the flight had to come back empty. Now, from the statement of External Affairs Ministry, this seems to be the focal point of that meet. So what was the result? We conveyed our agenda. It seems that the Taliban leaders have assured our ambassador that whatever the issues that India had would be addressed in a positive manner. Mr. Stankazai, right? That's the Indian connection that India has with Taliban. He was the one who recently made a video public statement asking India to continue its relation with Afghanistan like it was before. Right? He wanted the relation to be on the basis of trade and bilateral engagement. He wanted India to continue constructing infrastructure projects, investing in infrastructure projects in Afghanistan. So that was the person who was asking for a cordial relation with India. But the problem is, we are engaging with Taliban. So just because they are saying it, we cannot take them on face value. But trust is another issue when we talk, or we are trying to engage on an interest basis. Trust is different from interest. Here India has some self-interest where we don't want Taliban to nurture terror organizations that are trying to carry out bloodshed in our country. So that is interest. So trust is something where we agree with Taliban right? And we agree that both of our and Taliban-led Afghanistan and India must engage on trade and other areas of cooperation. That comes out of trust. But here, trust kind of is hard to find. So we need to engage them on interest basis. That is how America has been engaging, right? What was the interest of America in Afghanistan, or at least in their the interest in engaging with Taliban in Afghanistan? They wanted to pull out and they wanted assurances that Taliban wouldn't attack American soldiers. So, right now, India needs to engage with Taliban in on interest basis rather than on trust. So, trust will we have to see that whether it will come or not. That depends on how inclusive the government of Afghanistan is going to be in the future. So that is the meeting between our ambassador in Qatar with the political leadership of Taliban, where our ambassador met the political head of Taliban, that is Stenkazai. Concerns over Afghanistan's membership in SAARC arise. So the first thing that we have to understand is the SAARC summit is expected to take place soon in Islamabad. The country to host SAARC summit this time in the future, in the next coming few months or days, is Pakistan. So it is the host of the it is the responsibility of the host country to invite any other country to the summit. So the questions rise: does Pakistan invite an Taliban-led Afghanistan? So what does it entail? It entails some representatives of Taliban attending SAARC. So it in a sense gives international representation to Taliban by way of giving international representation of Afghanistan, which is under Taliban. Now, questions have risen over the membership of Afghanistan in the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. Right? Remember, Afghanistan was admitted into SAARC in 2007 when it was being led by President Hamid Karzai. That was a democratically elected government. So, SAARC admitted Afghanistan in 2007. It got permanent membership in 2007. SAARC had played a crucial role in developmental projects in Afghanistan, right? The moment it got representation, a permanent membership in SAARC grouping, SAARC funded many projects that covered education, sustainable development, and other areas of infrastructure in Afghanistan. As I said, now will Afghanistan be allowed to participate in SAARC summit that is to take place in Islamabad, and the host country is Pakistan. So that awaits for Afghanistan and also other members of SAARC grouping. As I said, as host, Pakistan has the responsibility of inviting member countries. Not only that, it has the responsibility to invite other countries also. But Pakistan is the host and Afghanistan is a member, which is being controlled by Taliban right now. So the question is, will Pakistan invite Afghanistan to SAARC summit that is being hosted by Pakistan itself? So that raises a lot of question over the grouping, because whether the engagement with Taliban or a Taliban-led government is key and crucial. So experts are saying that any engagement of SAARC with Afghanistan, a Taliban-led Afghanistan, will depend on Taliban creating an inclusive government, right? So that is something that we have to look for. So that is this article. So this entirely covers the entire gamut of the scenario in Afghanistan from Indian perspective, and regional perspective, where we have the SAARC on one side, where our envoy met their political leadership in Doha, and the second thing, India was able to successfully pass a resolution 2593 in UN Security Council. Moving on to an important article, China opens first road rail transport link to Indian Ocean. So, China has constructed a new road and rail transportation channel successfully to the Indian Ocean for the first time. By constructing this rail and road transportation channel, China can successfully bypass transporting goods through Malacca Straits. So the railway road link is from China to Myanmar, and from Myanmar China gains access to Indian Ocean, entirely bypassing Malacca Straits. Malacca Straits is a strategical point in the Andaman Sea that gives access to Indian Ocean region, right? Because of presence of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, India has a significant navy presence in Malacca Straits in that Andaman Sea region. One of the biggest worries of China has always been India's ability to cut off China's access to Malacca Straits. In essence, if things arise or things escalate to a point where we are at war with each other, Indian Navy has the capabilities and has the presence in the region to cut off or prevent Chinese vessels or Chinese Navy traveling from China mainland to Indian Ocean region through Malacca Straits. So if you look at the map, you have Strait of Malacca and you have Andaman Islands in Andaman Sea. So India can essentially lay a kind of an encirclement or a blockade in this region through its navy that prevents Chinese ships from passing through this strait. We can essentially cut off their main and important trade route. So you see that gap between Sumatra and Java, you have the Krakatoa volcano that is inaccessible at certain points of time, because if the volcano is very unstable, very active there, and if it erupts, you cannot travel through that channel also. So the options for China to travel through this region to access Indian Ocean region in a short distance, reducing time and fuel and money, is through Malacca Straits. It's a very significant and critical strategical route for China to transport its goods. Majority of the Chinese goods are transported through this route. Even when Chinese Navy vessels enter Indian Ocean region to go to the Pacific, they transit through this region. As I said, India has a very respectable presence, heavy presence in that region, and Indian Navy has the capability at any point of time to blockade Chinese access to this Malacca Straits. Now that is where this trade corridor that China developed with Myanmar comes into picture. So what is this corridor? It involves a rail and road connection, right? So China has essentially built a railway link between Chengdu, its trade capital in a sense in that region, to Linkang. A railway line was built which is on the side of China adjoining to Myanmar, and from Linkang to Yangon, where they have developed a port, they built a road. So in Yangon in Myanmar, China has built or developed a seaport. From there to their side in Linkang, they developed a road to transport goods from this seaport to that transit city. From there to Chengdu, they developed a railway lane. So by completing this project and by developing this seaport, China was successfully able to access Indian Ocean without the need for transiting through Malacca Straits. So in a way, they can circumnavigate Malacca Straits through this access point. So from that, they can access Indian Ocean region without any trouble. This is not the first time that they have taken up a project to gain access to Indian Ocean. Remember the entire CPEC project? That entire idea behind that project was to gain access to the warm waters of Indian Ocean. That was the reason that they are spending that much money. But you know how many problems the CPEC is facing right now. They have sunk more than 70 to 80 billion dollars into that. Nothing is completed yet. They don't have a date as to when that project will get completed, or or when will the Chinese have access to it. The security situation is deteriorating on a day-to-day basis, because we have recently seen number of instances where their workers, Chinese engineers, Chinese workers, were being killed along with Pakistan security forces. So the idea was that they would gain access to Indian Ocean through Pakistan's Gwadar port. That was the entire reason, or one of the reasons, as to why they developed the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor from Western Xinjiang region to Gwadar in Pakistan. The idea was to bypass the Malacca Straits. And that project, as I said, has been very slow, and now not only it is slow, it is expensive, and it has also become a security concern for them because of the attacks or recent spate of attacks on their personnel, that is Chinese citizens who were working on that project. Now with this route which they have opened with Myanmar, has essentially completed the task that they set out to do with CPEC. What was it? They wanted an opening to Indian Ocean that bypassed Malacca Straits. Now, Chengdu is Western China's biggest commercial hub. They have constructed a railroad from Chengdu to Lingang, which is close to Myanmar border on the Chinese side. From Lingang, they built a road to Yangon, and in Yangon they developed a seaport. So it essentially reduced the travel time, and it improved access to western parts of China. Now this is a significant development. As I said, if India wants, India can cut off access to China in Malacca Straits. That was their biggest worry, and now they have developed an alternate sea route to alternate access to Indian Ocean that completely bypasses Malacca Straits. Now this is the project that they have carried out. This was the trade corridor that they successfully built from western part of China into Indian Ocean through Myanmar. It is a rail and road link trade corridor. So they successfully able to achieve their goal of gaining access to Indian Ocean in this region, bypassing Malacca Straits. Now, a test cargo was successfully transported from Singapore to Chengdu in Western China. How they did it? A ship carried goods from Singapore, and it reached Yangon port by ship, and from there, from the Andaman Sea, they were able to transport it to Lingang by road, which is on the Chinese side of Myanmar-China border in Yunnan province, and a new railway line that they constructed on their side, which runs from the border town of Lingang to Chengdu, which is the western business capital of China, and these goods were transported to Chengdu on a railway line. This is the trade corridor that they developed with Myanmar that gave access to Indian Ocean bypassing Malacca Straits. Now this is the Chinese project. Does India have presence in this region? Does India has any plan or any port that India can gain access to Myanmar from this region, like how we are doing in Chabahar, how we competing with Gwadar. So we do have a similar project that India had undertook and currently is in the process of completing, so that we gain access to our northeastern states. That project is the Kaldan Multimodal Transit Transport Project. So this is the project that we are talking about. This project is like how the Chinese have built a trade route or trade link. We are also trying to build a similar trade link up with Myanmar. Now this is the Kaldan Multimodal Transit Transport Project. So what is this project? The project connects Sittwe port in Myanmar to the India-Myanmar border. Now it has been initiated by both India and Myanmar when there was a democratically elected government in Myanmar. The idea is that cargo shipments from eastern ports to Myanmar will be carried through northeastern ports and not through the Siliguri corridor. To make it clear, the idea is that cargo shipments from eastern ports of India will be transported by sea to Myanmar, and then from Myanmar they would be transported to northeastern parts of our country through Myanmar. So if you look at the map, you can clearly see how the progress or how the route will take place. The cargo will begin its journey at Kolkata. From there it will travel through Bay of Bengal, then it will reach Sittwe port in Myanmar. From there, the road we constructed will take it to our northeastern states, and the link will end up in Mizoram. The road that we are constructing, this trade route will end its journey at Mizoram. Essentially, we are developing an alternative route to our northeastern states through Myanmar, reducing our dependency on Siliguri corridor. Remember, we also constructed a similar road that splits Bangladesh into two parts from our state, West Bengal, to northeastern states in India. So we were essentially trying to reduce our dependency on Siliguri corridor, because that is one strategical point where India has certain disadvantages. So we need multiple access routes to our northeastern states. So we developed a trade corridor in Bangladesh, a road we constructed that gives access to northeastern states through Bangladesh. Likewise, we developed this trade route including road and sea route, not railway line, but road and sea route that gives access to northeastern states through Myanmar. Now it is expected to open soon, but the problem is the current scenario in Myanmar, right? The project will essentially reduce the distance between Kolkata to Sittwe road by approximately 1300 kilometers or so, and it also reduces our dependency on the Siliguri corridor, which is known as the chicken's neck. But again, look at the project itself. Now here is the caveat. Right where we have Sittwe port, China was also planning to develop a similar port very close to our seaport. But because of the current scenario or the uncertainty in Myanmar, that plan had to be shelved. But we are currently pursuing our project with the junta in Myanmar, but the security situation in Myanmar is making things trickier. But nonetheless, China was able to successfully complete its trade route, which originated in Chengdu to Yangon, by way of giving access to Indian Ocean to China. So this is a significant development in this regards. So this is a little bit of a concern for our country. Thank you. Stay safe. Namaste.
বৰঠাকুৰ IS একাডেমি প্ৰস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নির্ভরযোগ্য ঠিকানা।
ঠাকুর IAS একাডেমি।